Welcome to Startup Takeoff, your way to entrepreneurship in Germany, a podcast for students with an international or intercultural background who want to create a startup in this country. My name is Camila Muñoz, and in today's episode, we explore how artificial intelligence can be used in the world of entrepreneurship. To talk about this, I have invited a professor from Hochschule Darmstadt who has been working in the fields of innovation and digital transformation for many years. He also runs Startup Promptathons. These are practical workshops that teach participants how to use AI effectively while solving real entrepreneurship challenges. These Startup Promptathons are also offered as part of the International CareerService Rhein-Main project, together with other entrepreneurship workshops. Some of them are also AI-based and explore topics such as persona interviews, smart marketing strategies, business model canvases, and much more. All workshops are free of charge, so visit our website to register. ics-rm.de. Now let's hear from our guest about how entrepreneurs can benefit from using AI.
My name is Stefan Kohn. I'm Professor for Entrepreneurship at the Darmstadt Business School at the University for Applied Science of Darmstadt.
And you have more than 20 years of experience in areas like innovation management and digital transformation. How did it all start?
Actually, a fun fact, it started in Darmstadt when I was studying at the Technical University of Darmstadt as industrial engineer. And I was in an exchange program in the United States, and it was the first time I had a lecture on innovation management. That was not a term you had quite frequently here in Germany. I found it interesting to be always state of the art. So I'm always interested, or was always interested in new stuff, new things, how they shape our lives. And so that piqued my interest. And when I then returned, I was working for the Fraunhofer Gesellschaft, Fraunhofer Society, in the field of innovation management, mainly focusing on small, medium-sized enterprises in the production environment. And then I shifted to industry at Fujifilm. They were just switching between analog and digital photography. That was when digitalization came in and digital transformation. And then I moved over to Deutsche Telekom, and since then I'm working in the area of communication technology, information technology, and since 6-7 years also in the topic of artificial intelligence.
And since March 2025, you are teaching here at the Hochschule Darmstadt. And in another interview, you mentioned that you want to offer students practice-oriented and interactive courses that prepare them for future challenges. What do you think are these big challenges, and what skills will be needed?
Well, we are at the moment in quite interesting times. At the moment, a lot of things are changing, and change has two effects. On the one hand side, it creates anxious. So people fear change. People are typically not willing to change. So look at yourself. If you go to the restaurant or to the Mensa, to the canteen, you're always sitting in the same place, typically. Or in the lecture hall, you're always sitting in the same place. And if I ask people to switch seats, they don't want, because we don't want to change. But on the other hand, change creates opportunities. It creates opportunities to create something new. And that is basically what entrepreneurs are doing. They are creating something new in times of change. This is easier than in times where people are not forced to change. So we are living in interesting times where our society, where our organizations, where companies, where also we as teachers, but also our students have to change, to adopt new things, like at the moment artificial intelligence, to be prepared for the future. And my experience from 20 years is it's easier to change if you have the right tools and methodologies in your tool set. And that is basically what I want to teach to my students, so that they are future-proof when they start their career.
And how did you come to this world of AI and to apply it to entrepreneurial education?
Well, I came to the topic of AI by working at Deutsche Telekom. I was leading our future and innovation forum called T-Gallery. It's a place where we always think about what's happening in the next 5 to 10 years with our customers, suppliers, with our employees, from top management to all other levels of employees. And 6-7 years ago, it became obvious that AI is changing how we are doing certain things, how we are doing customer service, how we are going to sell products, how cybersecurity is handled, our networks are handled. So that was basically the time when I picked interest in artificial intelligence, In the beginning, it was more from a compliance and governance perspective because we were frequently talking about the ethical boundaries of the use of AI. And a few years later, when ChatGPT basically came out, it became obvious that a lot of people want to use AI, but they are lacking the skills, lacking the experience. There are no rules how to use it. It's basically just who is using it more, has more experience, and you can share this experience. And that was the first point where I thought about how to teach using AI. That was the first point of my touch point. So we created various formats. We adopted the Promptathon, who was invented by colleagues from Hamburg, in our organization. When I then last year joined the university in Darmstadt here, it became obvious that the need here is there as well. So we did some Promptathons, and as I'm the professor of entrepreneurship, for me it was clear I don't want to talk just about AI. I want to integrate it in my classes and my lectures. And that was the starting point, how I thought about how to use AI also in the field of entrepreneurship. And the more I thought, the more I realized that AI is actually a game changer for founders. When I look at my career in various organizations, I spent a lot of time convincing other people to give me resources to build, for example, a prototype. Because I'm an industrial engineer by education, so I'm not a designer, I'm not a coder, I'm not a developer for hardware or software. So I needed some other skills. So I needed some other people, I needed resources to help me create, prototype, build my ideas that I had. Nowadays, I can do it on my own because I have AI. It's no problem to create an app just with telling the tool what I need. I'm not saying we don't need designers or software engineers at all, but for a first test, for a prototype, I can do it my own. So it's really helping me to turn ideas into prototypes, into concrete output on my own without the need of everyone else. So it's enabling me to do what I want to do. And that's the same for my students. And that's basically what I'm trying to teach to my students, how to use AI in the right way, not to replace their creativity, but to complement it and especially complement them with the right tools to become better founders.
And you were mentioning the Promptathon. That is something you have been offering here at the Hochschule Darmstadt, and it's also part of the offerings of the International CareerService Rhein-Main. What is a Promptathon and what can people expect from that?
So the Promptathon is a tool to become more literate in the use of AI. There are various levels of AI literacy. Some people till today fear AI and they are not using it. So the Promptathon is on the one hand side for those people an easy entrance, entry point for them because it's a no barrier format. Everyone can join. In the beginning, you get some ideas about what AI can do, how you use AI correctly, what a good prompt is, maybe how to use a prompting framework, so a certain structure for your prompt to get the optimum output. And then you have time between 2 and 3 hours to simply try out what you just learned in half an hour with others in a group. And that's the most important thing. It's group learning. You see other people are not more literate than you. Maybe some people have a little bit more experience and they can share it. So whenever I do a Promptathon, even if I would consider myself maybe above average literacy in AI, I always learn something new. And that's basically the whole concept of the Promptathons, having separate time from your day-to-day tasks that you reserve for trying out new stuff with AI in combination with other people, learning from each other and creating new knowledge for everyone. But also for people who are already very literate, you can adjust the kind of level of Promptathon by having different challenges because you're not just trying out AI prompts, but you're trying to solve a challenge. And there are typically various challenges at a Promptathon. Some may be for beginners and some are maybe more advanced. And the advanced challenges are then more suitable for people who have a little bit more knowledge. So by that, you can adjust the level of complexity quite easily. So it's a format that is very open from beginners, but also to advanced users, and simply should help to make connections among people and master AI capabilities better than without a promptathon.
And in this case, the Startup Promptathon, what are some examples of the challenges that you can find there?
Exactly. And then the promptathon is about learning how to use AI in general, but you can then specify it for certain areas. In that case, we did here also promptathons for entrepreneurship. And that is basically what I just tried to describe. AI is helping entrepreneurs to become better entrepreneurs because it helps you, for example, in the prototyping phase. But if you look at the different phases of a startup, basically in all areas, you can use AI. And all those use cases can or have been potential challenges in our promptathon. So it can start by, for example, 2 days ago, we had a promptathon and my challenge was, how can I create a chatbot that helps founders to validate early ideas, to help them to find maybe other startups that are already existing in a similar field, so that you prevent double inventions, and that helps them to challenge or to ask if they're really asking or solving a right problem, or it's just a symptom they are helping. So the typical question also an entrepreneur coach would ask in the very early phase of the startup process. I use it, for example, in education. We use AI for persona interviews, for example, because in class, we typically don't have experts. So if you have an idea for a startup in the medical field, typically we don't have doctors in our classroom. So we can stimulate at least the persona with AI if you prompt it correctly. Later in the phase, we have the prototyping. AI can help us build websites, apps, can create videos. 2 days ago, we had another challenge that was dealing with the marketing element. So how can I automate Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all social media feeds automatically with AI? There are dedicated AI tools for that one. And the guys were just evaluating the different tools that are available in the market. So basically from the first idea until market entry, all elements of the entrepreneurial activities can be supplemented and supported by AI. And those are all things that can be shown in the challenges within a promptathon.
And are there other skills that people can develop beyond like learning to use AI and getting answers for what they want, but also like to develop some other skills that help them use AI effectively, but not become like completely dependent on AI?
Yeah. So besides how to use AI, the first question is always, what is the right AI for us to use? Because there are general purpose AIs like ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude, or dedicated AI tools. Let's, for example, take the example of social media marketing. There are dedicated AI tools. We talked about Place, for example, that are mainly suited for social media. So the first question is, what is the right tool I have to use, and then how to use it? So this is what I would call AI literacy. And then you have the meta learnings when people are there, and the first question they have to answer is, what is meant by this challenge? So to reflect basically what you want, because AI can give you answers, but it's not asking you questions, or typically not the first question and not the good questions. So reflecting on your own vision, on your objectives is, I think that a lot of people learn during the promptathon that this is becoming much more important than just writing the prompt. And that is something we all should keep in mind. The AI can help us in basically all aspects, or almost all aspects of our life. It can make our life much easier. It can improve the quality of what we do, but it's just doing what we tell the AI to do. So we are still the controlling body. We are the ones who basically sets the objectives, and for that you have to know what your objective is. And that is basically what a lot of people are actually missing, because we are just trying to get things accomplished and we are not thinking why we are actually doing things. And this reflection is also a big learning happening in many cases during a promptathon.
And another thing you mentioned was the peer-to-peer learning. You mentioned also at the beginning that you can be like doing everything by yourself because you have AI. You don't need a designer or etc. But in this case, you mentioned that they work together in groups, so they are also developing like some teamwork or.
Yeah. So promptathon is a team experience, And that is, for example, what we also saw 2 days ago in our Entrepreneurship Promptathon. There were people who were startup coaches, transfer agents, or however their job description was, but they were all working in the entrepreneurship field and helping and supporting entrepreneurs, or were interested in creating a company. And by discussing certain challenges, it became obviously, my challenge was as a startup coach to challenge an idea. And suddenly we were popping up, where could I use it? I could use it in teaching. Others were thinking about, I could use it in my coaching sessions. I could use it in my consulting sessions. I can put it on my website. So we were spinning around ideas how to make use out of this, what we are developing together during the Promptathon. So this is something that happens quite frequently, and it's part of the journey. And so AI can help us with use cases, but we have as human beings to identify the right use cases. And for that, it's helpful to talk with people who are working in a similar domain to understand what potential use cases are there where AI can really create a huge benefit and a huge value. And on top of that, it's always, and that's more the general term, I always say there are no AI experts in the world. Because at the moment the field is developing so fast, there are only people who have a little bit more time spent with AI and have a little bit more experience, but there is no person in the world, I would assume, that is capable of knowing everything that is out there on AI. Every model is behaving differently from day to day. What works today in one model might not work tomorrow in the same model, because the advancement is so fast, and that scares a lot of people because it's not deterministic. You do twice the same thing, you get different results. That's the nature of AI. Because it's a non-deterministic system, and that scares a lot of people. But if you then are there and see there are people that struggle with the same problems, that also helps people to become a little bit more comfortable in what they are doing and how they use AI.
And what do you think are some common mistakes that people make when trying to approach to AI or trying to use it for their own business ideas? Do you have some advice or some tips that people can take into account at the beginning?
That's actually the toughest question so far in our interview. On the one hand side, it depends a little bit on the person. So some persons have too much confidence in the AI. So that's something which I see in my students from time to time. They are already used to use AI since a few years. They were very willing using AI and doing it, but they are missing the reflection. So because of their missing experience with real life, they are young people. They are not capable as much as people with more life experience in judging what the AI is doing, because the AI is trained on lots of data, on lots of free data, which is not always the best data, and it's giving you very good textbook advices. But life is more complicated than what's written in the textbook. And this is typically not reflected so much in AI results. So a lot of people have too much trust and cannot reflect on the output so much. And then there, on the other side, we have very experienced people with long life experience, and they are a little bit afraid of using digital technologies. That's also so happening because they are fearing they could break something or whatever. So that's also something which is a mistake. My opinion is we all have to test more, learn more by that, but be always critical in reflecting what the output is. And then we are reiterating a little bit what I said before. AI is an answering device, not a question device. So we have to know what we want. And that is something a Promptathon helps people to realize. And it's a typical misconcept as well. People say, I want to have an answer to it. And then they are surprised that the answer is too long, too short, not creative enough, not detailed enough, whatever their effect is. And then ask, did you tell the AI you wanted more creative or more detailed or shorter or whatever? And they said, no. So how should the AI know? That's for me just the example that we have to know what we want, then we get what we want. But if we don't tell, because we don't know what we want, then the results are not useful at all.
And what do you think is the risk of knowing what you want and expecting exactly this, and then you get exactly what you expect, but you don't get to see other points of view or maybe things you haven't considered before?
Well, if I know exactly what I want and get it, then I'm happy. But if I want to be challenged, then I have a different objective. So I have to ask the AI to challenge me. So here again, I have to know what I want. Do I want to get challenged, or do I exactly know what I want? And then the result will be good. And both is fine. So how I use AI, in the beginning, I'm pretty free. So I want also to hear the ideas of the AI. Then I create my perfect view and use the AI to make it as perfect as possible. And when I think I'm happy, then I'm again asking the AI and check it for feedback and critical advice. But those are 3 steps in a journey on creating something new. And it can be an email, it can be a logo, it can be a lecture, it can be everything.
What do you think are some entrepreneurial skills beyond critical thinking that we already mentioned that will be very valuable now?
Well, for me, entrepreneurs are, on the first hand side, fast. They are willing to experiment. They are open and they try out things. And that is exactly what we need now in the AI area. We are still in the phase, also in the industry, where we are trying to find out what are the best use cases for AI, how to use AI in the best way. And there is no blueprint for that. So we have to be willing to learn. We can only learn by experiments. And if we learn something that is working, we have to scale fast because the rest of the world is not sleeping. And those are the exact 3 elements an entrepreneur can do. And therefore, I'm on the one hand side pretty happy with what is happening in Germany, because I see a lot of startups in the moment in the AI phase that are also successful on an international level. We are doing actually quite well. But on the other hand, there's always room for improvement. So I hope we can keep the traction and even build on that.
And what do you think are some risks of using AI? For almost everything we can use it.
I'm not sure if using AI is a risk, or of course there are risks. I mean, AI is not perfect. It can hallucinate. There are biases. We all know of the ethical boundaries and the technical boundaries of AI. But at the moment, I would say the biggest risk is not using AI. That's a much bigger risk.
In your experience, have you seen, for example, startups that use AI and develop their product more and more? Like how to find a balance and not just get quick hacks and answers from the AI, but to build the startup in a sustainable way?
Well, the most startups I worked with are founded in Germany. And in Germany, it's more the opposite. We are very cautious in using new technologies, especially AI. So all the startups I worked with were very cautious in how they're using it, not promising too much to their customers. And my biggest fear here would be more, are we losing too much time? Are we too cautious compared to other countries? For example, I was working for Deutsche Telekom, and everyone knows if you're calling a company, it's pretty normal that you are talking to a chatbot or a voice bot. So an AI machine is answering your call. What is pretty new is that the AI is calling you, so that we are using AI bots for outbound calls. And there are various startups working in the field, and the most aggressive, and where I would say they were using AI in a non-ethical way, were from America in that case. For example, not disguising that an AI is calling you. And then I would say this is intransparent. That is also against the EU AI Act. But nevertheless, they did it. And the Germans were a little bit reluctant, saying, we have still to control the AI. We want to make sure that nothing goes wrong. And in the end, at the moment, one of the most successful companies in that area comes from Israel, who were simply quick, focusing on the customer and the user, taking a certain risk that sometimes the AI would do something wrong. But that's, I think, the biggest mistake we are doing. We expect from the AI 100% correctness. And for me, the AI is like an intern or a colleague or another employee. And we are all humans, and I would never expect 100% correctness from you. I would expect a certain level of correctness. I would expect that you don't do the same mistake twice, but you can make errors. That's completely normal. Why should the AI always be correct? My biggest or my most favorite example is self-driving cars. I hate driving car. And I'm desperate for the experience that I can go to my car and say, I want to go home for the next 2 hours. I will work and I don't have to worry about the traffic. In some countries, this is possible. Yeah, let's go to San Francisco. You can call a Waymo and the Waymo is driving you from A to Z. No worries. But there are still the discussions. There shouldn't be any accident with a self-driving car. We want to have zero fault tolerance. That's not going to work. For me, the threshold is not no errors. It has to be better than a human driver. And I'm pretty sure we are already here that AI can drive better than at least me. I'm not a good car driver. Doesn't mean that I always do an accident, but I had some. So then it's good enough for me. So we shouldn't be more challenging to AI than we are with ourselves.
I think it's an interesting perspective because most people see it as a tool that gives you everything perfect what you need, and not so much as a colleague or as another team member that can also make mistakes, and it's your job to hear what they say but also to check if it's true, to check other sources. And I think that's part of the AI literacy you mentioned at the beginning. And do you have some suggestions? How can we work more on this AI literacy, like including this in the universities, in the schools, or what would you think?
Well, I don't want to emphasize too much on the AI literacy because I think it's a very important foundation, because if you have a tool, you have to know how to use a tool. So you would never take a electric saw and give it to a child and say, test it out, because the risk of injury is quite high. So we all have to have a certain level of AI literacy, but it's not the ultimate goal. I think once you have a certain level of AI literacy, for example, by being part of a promptathon, it's more about your critical reflection. And therefore, I'm always stressing this image of AI as a very helpful colleague or intern, because that helps you understand how to talk with an AI. You have to give it context. You have to give it an objective. You have to be fault tolerant because maybe it's not understanding everything correctly. And then you have to simply use common sense in using AI as you would use your common sense in working with another human being. And the rest is just experience. And the more you feel comfortable with using AI, the more you will use it. The more you will experiment, the more you will learn, and by that automatically AI literacy will increase.
And going back to the entrepreneurship part of AI, do you think AI is shaping the way we see entrepreneurship now, or how people maybe come closer to entrepreneurship?
Well, again, I'm an optimistic person, so I focus on the bright side of life, and therefore I hope that AI makes it much easier for people to establish their own company and to become entrepreneurs. In the past, we had basically a standard pathway for career. You did your studies and then you started a job in a big company. That was basically what 95 to 99% of the students were doing after they graduated. Now, first of all, the job market is shifting. And entrepreneurship suddenly becomes maybe a second option to traditional working as an dependent employee in a company. But nevertheless, for a lot of people, entrepreneurship means I have to have a high-tech startup, work 24 hours a day, and this is what media is basically showing you. And there are so many other elements. You can be a successor of an established company. You can found in part-time. But nevertheless, you need to be very broad in all the skills you have, because you have to sell your stuff, you have to market it, you have to develop it. So an entrepreneur is always someone who has a lot of different tasks to do. And that is where AI can help you. It can be your 24/7 coach telling you what you have to think about, taxes, rules, regulation, administration you haven't heard about before because it was not part of your curriculum. It can do certain stuff you are not interested in doing. So I hope and I think AI can make the life of an entrepreneur much easier. And that is what, when I now talk to entrepreneurs, what I'm getting reflected and as feedback, yes, this hypothesis seems to be true. And therefore, I hope AI will help Germany, our society, to create more founders because we desperately need them.
And finally, do you have some advice for students that are maybe interested in the topic entrepreneurship? They see also that the market is shifting, that they want to do something, maybe some entrepreneurial spirit they have. How can they start with AI?
The best way, of course, visiting one of my lectures, because in most of my lectures we start with a self-thought problem and end up with a pitch, which you can basically then use to start your company. So that's how I teach applied entrepreneurship. Come to my class, and at the end, you will have the option to found your own company.
And are you also connected in the scene here in Darmstadt or in the Rhine-Main area for people that maybe are not part of the Darmstadt University of Applied Sciences, if they can also visit your workshops or meet you somewhere else?
Yes, so most of the workshops I'm doing, which are not part of our classes, are also advertised. So we have regular. So 2 days ago when we did our Promptathon, there were people from basically whole Hesse over here. I'm rather new in that job, but I think I have already quite a good network, but I'm always happy to improve it and enlarge it.
Great. Thank you very much. It was very interesting and good luck.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
This was our episode about entrepreneurship and AI with Stefan Kohn, professor at Hochschule Darmstadt. If you have any comments or suggestions for future episodes, please email us at info@ics-rm.de or contact us through our social media channels. Startup Takeoff, Your Way to Entrepreneurship in Germany is a podcast of the International CareerService Rhein-Main, a project that supports international students and students with a history of migration to start their career or business in Germany. The project is funded by the European Union and the State of Hesse. To know more about our offer, please visit our website at ics-rm.de. You can also connect with us on social media. You find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Thanks for listening, and until next month.